Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the viewing window of the human transport ship. He watched as the massive space station grew larger ahead of them. The station was bigger than Earth's moon. Its metal surface gleamed with strange lights and moved, in ways that hurt his eyes to watch. "First time seeing the council station?" asked Dr. Yoon-ji as she joined him at the window. She was Earth's top scientist and the smartest person Hyunwoo had ever met. Her calm voice helped steady his nerves. "Yes," Hyunwoo replied. "I've seen the pictures, but this is different. It's so big it doesn't seem real." Captain Minho walked up behind them. His military uniform was crisp and clean, but his face showed worry. "The aliens who built this have ruled space for thousands of years. They think they're gods." The transport ship moved closer to the station. Strange ships floated nearby. Some looked like giant spiders made of crystal. Others were just clouds of gas held inside metal shells. One ship seemed to be made of living rock that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Those are council ships," Yoon-ji explained. "Each one represents a different alien race, 12 races in total. They call themselves the most advanced beings in the universe." Hyunwoo nodded. Earth had only discovered these aliens 6 months ago when their long-range scanners found human radio signals. The aliens had sent a message that was polite but cold. Humanity was invited to join the Galactic Council. It wasn't really a choice. The docking was smooth. Human technology was simple compared to what the aliens had, but it worked. As they left, their ship, the 3 humans, found themselves in a corridor that stretched further than they could see. The walls were covered in symbols that moved and changed color. "Stay close," Minho warned. "We don't know what all this alien tech does." They followed floating lights that guided them deeper into the station. The air tasted strange and felt thick. Gravity seemed to pull in different directions in some areas. Hyunwoo's stomach felt sick, but he kept walking. Finally, they reached the council chamber. Hyunwoo stopped and stared. The room was huge beyond belief. It could have held a dozen human cities. Floating platforms held different alien beings, each stranger than the last. The crystal spiders were called Valthek. They made musical sounds that somehow turned into words in the humans' heads. The gas clouds were Mordun, and their voices sounded like whispers from far away. There were others, too, beings made of light, creatures that looked like walking plants, and things that Hyunwoo couldn't even describe. At the center of it all was the speaking platform. It rose from the floor like a mountain. On top sat the oldest beings in the council. These were the Sithmori, creatures of pure energy that looked like living stars. "Humans," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome to the Galactic Council." The speaker was a Valthek, one of the crystal spiders. Its name was Counselor Zenthar, and it was bigger than the others. When it moved, light danced across its crystal body in patterns that made Hyunwoo dizzy. "We are honored to be here," Hyunwoo replied. His voice sounded tiny in the huge chamber. "Of course you are," Zenthar replied. The musical tones that made up its speech had a mocking quality. "Your species is very young, very primitive, but we have decided to help you." Dr. Yoon-ji stepped forward. "Help us how?" Another voice answered. This one belonged to a Mordun called Elder Counselor Morthak. The gas creature's shell was decorated with symbols that hurt to look at directly. "We offer membership in our great council, protection, guidance, improvement." "What does that mean exactly?" Hyunwoo asked. Zenthar made a sound like crystal chimes laughing. "It means we will save you from yourselves, little humans. Your species is violent and chaotic. You fight wars over nothing. You damage your own planet. You create weapons that could destroy you all." "We also create art and music," Yoon-ji said, quietly. "We help each other. We explore and learn." "Childish things," Morthak replied. "Under council guidance, you will outgrow such waste. We will give you purpose." The terms of membership began to appear in the air above them. Holographic text in dozens of languages, including Earth's major ones. Hyunwoo read with growing disbelief. Earth would give 75% of its resources to the Council. All humans would undergo genetic changes to make them better suited for galactic civilization. Earth's military would be disbanded. All dangerous technologies would be given to the Council for safekeeping. This is very generous, Zenthar continued. Most new species are required to give 90% of their resources. We are being kind because your planet has some interesting materials. Minho's jaw was tight with anger, but he stayed quiet. Yunji was reading the terms carefully, her face getting more shocked with each line. What about our culture? Hyunwoo asked. Our history? Our way of life? Primitive cultures must be replaced with advanced ones, said another voice. This belonged to one of the energy beings high above. It is for your own good. Look around. We have achieved peace and order that has lasted thousands of years. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. He saw no joy in any of the alien faces, no laughter or warmth, just cold superiority and ancient boredom. The genetic modifications, Yunji said. What exactly would those involve? Improvements to your brain. Chemistry, Morthak explained. Humans are too emotional and unpredictable. We will make you calmer and more logical, better suited for your role in galactic society. Which is what? Minho asked, speaking for the first time. Labor, of course, Zenthar replied. Your species shows promise in certain manual tasks. With proper modification, you could be quite useful. The three humans exchanged glances. They had expected the aliens to be advanced, but not like this. These beings didn't want to help humanity grow. They wanted to turn humans into servants. This is a standard membership agreement, the energy being continued. Every species receives the same generous offer. All have been grateful to accept. How many species are in the council now? Hyunwoo asked. 12 founding members, Zenthar C. replied, plus 17 junior species who have been successfully integrated. What happened to species who didn't join? Yunji asked. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant humming of the station's machinery seemed to quiet. That is not a relevant question, Morthak finally said. All species join. There is no alternative. Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. The threat was clear, even if not spoken directly. We need time to discuss this with our people on Earth, he said carefully. The aliens seemed surprised. Zenthar's crystal body flashed with different colors. Discuss? There is nothing to discuss. This is the way things are done. Nevertheless, Hyunwoo said firmly, humanity needs to consider these terms. We ask for time to consult with our government. The energy beings high above pulsed with what might have been irritation. How much time? One of them asked. 2 weeks, Hyunwoo replied. Very well, Zenthar said after a long pause. But understand that our patience is not unlimited. The Council has important work to do. We cannot wait forever for one small species to accept the obvious. As the humans were escorted back to their ship, Minho whispered, They're not offering membership. They're demanding surrender. I know, Hyunwoo replied quietly. The question is, what do we do about it? Dr. Yunji couldn't sleep. She sat in her quarters aboard the human ship, staring at her computer screen. The data she had collected during their visit to the council station made her sick to her stomach. 3 days had passed since their meeting with the Galactic Council. The alien station still hung outside their window like a metal moon, waiting for humanity's answer. But Yunji had been busy doing what humans did best, asking questions no one wanted them to ask. Any luck breaking their security? Asked So Young, the team's top computer engineer. She was young but brilliant, able to understand alien technology. faster than anyone else on the ship. Some, Yunji replied. Their systems are old, very advanced but old. They haven't updated their security in centuries because no one has ever challenged them before. So Young sat down next to her and pulled up her own screen. I've been working on the biological data they shared about the genetic modifications. Want to know what I found? Yunji nodded, though she was afraid to hear the answer. The modifications aren't improvements, So Young said quietly. They're designed to make humans dependent on council medical technology. Without regular treatments, the modified humans would die within 5 years. What else? The brain modifications reduce creativity and curiosity by about 60%. They also make it harder to form emotional bonds with other people. Yunji closed her eyes. It was worse than she had feared. They're not trying to help us. They're trying to turn us into slaves who can't fight back. It gets worse, So Young continued. She brought up another file. I managed to crack their historical records. Remember those 17 junior species they mentioned? I found data on them. The screen showed a list of alien races. Next to each name were dates and population numbers. Yunji saw the pattern immediately. Their populations are dropping, she said. Every single one. The Karani used to number in the billions. Now there are only a few million left. The Theks had colonies on hundreds of worlds. Now they live on just 3 planets. The Veltar were master builders who created amazing cities. Now they work in council factories. Yunji felt anger building in her chest. What about the others? The races that aren't on this list? So Young was quiet for a moment. I found references to 23 other species that were contacted by the council over the past 1,000 years. But there's no current data on them at all. It's like they just disappeared. The 2 women sat in silence, thinking about what this meant. The Galactic Council wasn't just controlling other species. They were slowly destroying them. We need to tell the others, Yunji said finally. An hour later, the senior staff of the human mission gathered in the ship's main meeting room. Ambassador Hyunwoo listened with a grim face as Yunji and So Young shared their discoveries. Captain Minho grew more angry with each revelation. So they're not offering us membership, Minho said. They're planning to commit genocide. Slowly, but genocide all the same. It appears so, Hyunwoo replied. The question is, what can we do about it? We're one small ship facing an empire that has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Maybe we're not as alone as we think, said Engineer Boram. She was older than So Young, but equally skilled with technology. I've been monitoring communications around the station. Some of the junior council species have been trying to contact us privately. What do they want? Hyunwoo asked. To talk, away from council monitoring. Minho looked suspicious. It could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance to learn the truth, Yunji pointed out. If these species are being destroyed too, maybe they want to fight back. After much discussion, they decided to take the risk. Boram arranged secret meetings using encrypted channels that the council's old security systems couldn't detect. The first meeting was with the Karani. They were bird-like creatures with brilliant feathers and sharp, intelligent eyes. Their representative was called Velshin, and she spoke with barely controlled rage. My people were warriors once, Velshin said. Her voice was like music, but music filled with pain. We flew between the stars in ships of our own design. We had honor codes and battle songs that could inspire courage in any heart. What happened? Hyunwoo asked gently. The council said our warrior culture was too violent. They modified our genes to make us more peaceful. Now most of my people can barely leave their nests. They spend their days making decorative items for council members to enjoy. How many of you are left unchanged? A few thousand. We hide in the outer colonies where council monitoring is weak, but our numbers drop every year. The second meeting was with the Theks. They were water dwellers, like intelligent squids, but their representative wore a breathing suit that let him survive in the ship's air. His name was Morgal, and he was called a deep singer. Your people fascinate us, Morgal said. His voice bubbled like water over stones. "We have watched your broadcasts, your music, your stories, your dreams of exploring the stars. We once had such dreams too." "Tell us what happened to your species," Yunji requested. "We were master biotechnicians. We could grow ships from living coral, create medicines that could cure any disease, design organisms that could transform dead worlds into gardens. The council said our technology was too dangerous. They took it all away. All of it. Now we grow simple food organisms for council consumption. Our greatest scientists work in their laboratories, forbidden to pursue their own research. We have become farmers and servants in a universe we once helped to shape." The third meeting was the strangest. The Veltar were silicon-based life forms that looked like living crystals. Their representative, Threknor, communicated through light patterns that the ship's computer could translate. "Crystal-mind Threknor mourns for crystal people," the translation read. "Once was builders of wonders spanning star distances, now is diggers of pretty stones for council pleasure." "How long has this been happening to your people?" Hyunwoo asked. "Time measurement, 400 council cycles. Population was billions. Of crystal people. Population now, thousands. Projection future, extinction within 50 council cycles." The pattern was clear. The council would offer protection and advancement, then slowly drain each species of everything that made them unique. Their technology, their culture, their very biology was modified until they became dependent servants. And when they were no longer useful, they simply faded away. "Why don't you fight back?" Minho asked during the fourth meeting, where all three species were represented. "With what?" Velshin replied bitterly. "Our weapons were taken. Our ships are controlled by council systems. Our people have been modified to be passive and dependent. Besides," Morgal added, "the council is too powerful. 12 ancient species with technologies we can barely understand. What could a few rebels do against that?" "Maybe more than you think," Yunji said quietly. "Humans have a saying. The enemy of my enemy is my friend." "You're talking about an alliance," Threknor's translator displayed. "I'm talking about refusing to die quietly," Yunji replied. "The council expects us to sign their agreement in a few days. What if we don't? What if we say no?" "Impossible," Velshin said. "No species has ever refused council membership." "Then we'll be the first," Minho said with determination. "They'll destroy you," Morgal warned. "Their fleets are vast." "Maybe," Hyunwoo said, "but we won't go down without a fight. And if we're going to fight, we'd rather fight alongside friends than die alone." The alien representatives looked at each other with something that might have been hope. "What do you propose?" Velshin asked. "Give us everything you know about council technology and military capabilities," Yunji said. "In return, we'll share human knowledge and coordinate our response." "Human knowledge is primitive compared to council science," Threknor pointed out. "Maybe," So Young said with a smile, "but it's also new. Sometimes a fresh perspective can solve old problems." Over the next several days, information flowed between the human ship and the secret representatives of the three oppressed species. The humans learned about council technology, history, and weaknesses. In return, they shared human scientific theories, engineering principles, and military tactics. What surprised everyone was how quickly the humans grasped alien concepts and found ways to improve them. Human creativity and innovation, traits that the council viewed as primitive chaos, proved to be exactly what the oppressed species needed. "Your people think in ways we never considered," Velshin admitted. "You see solutions where we see only problems." "That's what humans do," Yunji replied. "We ask what if when everyone else says impossible." As the deadline for humanity's answer approached, Ambassador Hyun-woo made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Earth would not accept council membership. But they wouldn't simply refuse and wait to die either. Humanity was going to do something that no species had ever done before. They were going to fight back, and they wouldn't fight alone. The council chamber buzzed with anticipation. For 2 weeks, the ancient beings had waited for humanity's response to their generous offer. It had been an unusual delay, but the council was patient. After all, what choice did the primitive humans really have? Counselor Zenthar positioned himself at the center of the speaking platform, his crystal body gleaming with confidence. Around the vast chamber, representatives from all 12 founding species floated on their platforms. The Morden whispered, among themselves in their gas-like forms. The energy beings of the Sith Mori pulsed with ancient authority. "Today we welcome our newest junior members," Zenthar announced, his musical voice echoing through the chamber. "The humans have had time to consider our offer. Surely they have come to understand the honor we bestow upon them." The human transport ship docked exactly on schedule. Ambassador Hyun Woo led his team through the corridors just as before. But something was different this time. The 3 humans walked with straighter spines and steadier steps. Dr. Yunji carried herself like someone who knew a secret. Captain Minho's military bearing had a new edge to it. As they entered the council chamber, the usual murmur of alien conversations fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and detection device in the room focused on the small group of humans walking toward the speaking platform. "Humans," Zenthar began with satisfaction, "we trust you have reached the obvious conclusion. Your species' future lies with the council." Hyun Woo stepped forward. His voice was calm but clear as it carried across the enormous chamber. "Honorable counselors, we have indeed reached a conclusion about membership in your organization." "Excellent," rumbled Elder Counselor Morthak from his gaseous shell. "The modification procedures can begin immediately. Your people will thank you for this wisdom." "Actually," Hyunwoo said, "we must respectfully decline your offer." The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in thousands of years, the council chamber was completely quiet. No whispers, no mechanical sounds, no energy pulses. Just silence. Zenthar's crystal body flickered through several colors before settling on a deep red. "I'm sorry, I believe there was a translation error. Did you say decline?" "That's correct," Hyunwoo replied. "Humanity chooses not to accept membership in the Galactic Council at this time." The reaction was immediate and chaotic. The Valthek began producing discordant musical tones that shattered several decorative crystals around the chamber. The Morden's gas forms swirled violently within their containment shells. Other alien species made sounds and movements that their translators couldn't even process. High above them all, something stirred that hadn't moved in centuries. A massive form of pure energy began to descend from the highest platform. This was High Arbiter Queldris of the Scythe Mori, the oldest being in the council. His voice, when it came, sounded like the birth of stars. "In 10,000 years of council existence," Queldris said, "no species has ever refused our guidance. This is unprecedented." Dr. Yunji stepped forward. "Perhaps it's time for a precedent to be set." "Impossible!" Zenthar snapped, his crystal form now flashing angry colors. "Every species accepts. There is no alternative." "There's always an alternative," Minho said quietly. "That's what makes us human." Elder Counselor Morthak's shell began to vibrate with agitation. "You don't understand what you're refusing. Protection, advancement, purpose. Without the Council's guidance, your species will destroy itself within generations." "Maybe," Hyunwoo acknowledged, "but it will be our choice to make." The energy being called Queldris pulsed with what might have been confusion. For a creature that had existed since before most stars were born, the concept of refusal was as foreign as gravity running backward. "Perhaps," Queldris said slowly, "we were too generous in our initial offer. Let us revise the terms. 60% of your resources instead of 75. limited genetic modifications, restricted but not eliminated military forces. We appreciate the adjustment, Hyunwoo replied, but our answer remains the same. No. More chaos erupted around the chamber. Several council members began speaking at once in languages that the human translators couldn't handle. The noise was overwhelming, but the humans stood steady in the center of it all. 50% resources, Queldris offered, his energy form, pulsing brighter. Minimal modifications, cultural preservation within acceptable limits. No, Yoonji said simply. 40%, no genetic changes, full cultural autonomy. No, Minho added. 30% resources only. Complete independence in all other matters. No, all three humans said together. The chamber fell silent again. This time the silence was different. It was the silence of beings who had never faced rejection trying. To understand what was happening to their ordered universe, Zenthar's crystal body had turned a dark purple color. You cannot simply refuse. The Council maintains order in this galaxy. Without our protection, other species will destroy you. Pirates will raid your worlds. Your own violent nature will lead to wars that consume your civilization. That's our problem to solve, Hyunwoo said. You're being childish, snapped another council member, one of the plant-like Verdani. Every species goes through this phase of thinking they can survive alone. Reality always teaches them otherwise. Maybe we'll learn that lesson, Yoonji agreed. Or maybe we'll surprise you. The ancient beings looked at each other with growing frustration. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia by offering protection in exchange for submission. No species had ever been strong enough or foolish enough to refuse. The system had worked perfectly. Until now. High Arbiter Queldris descended further, his energy form crackling with power. When he spoke, the very air in the chamber seemed to vibrate. Perhaps you misunderstand the nature of our offer. Council, membership is not optional for species in our sphere of influence. Order must be maintained. The threat was clear now. Join or be destroyed. Captain Minho stepped forward, his hand resting casually on his sidearm. Are you threatening us? We are explaining reality, Zenthar replied. The Council has fleets, weapons, technologies beyond your comprehension. Resistance is not possible. Interesting, Yoonji said with a slight smile. We hoped you'd see it that way. Something in her tone made several council members pause. There was no fear in the human's voice. If anything, she sounded pleased. What could possibly give you confidence to stand against 12 ancient civilizations? Elder, Morthak demanded. Your species has barely left its home system. Your technology is primitive. Your military is laughable. You're probably right, Hyunwoo admitted. But we've had 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks? Zenthar's laughter sounded like breaking glass. What could any species accomplish in 2 weeks that would matter against the Council's might? Dr. Yoonji's smile grew wider. You'd be surprised what humans can do when we put our minds to it. The ancient beings around the chamber began to feel something they hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. These humans were too calm, too confident. No species facing annihilation should sound so relaxed. Your fleet will discover Earth's defenses soon enough, Queldris declared. Perhaps a demonstration of Council power will help you reconsider. Actually, Minho said, we were hoping you'd send your fleet to Earth. Why would you hope for your own destruction? Zenthar asked, genuinely puzzled. Because, Yoonji replied, it's much easier to spring a trap when your enemy comes to you. For the first time in their ancient existence, the members of the Galactic Council felt something that lesser species experience daily: the cold touch of fear. High Arbiter Queldris pulsed with angry energy. You dare to threaten the Council? You have no idea what forces you're challenging. You're right, Hyunwoo agreed. We have no idea what we're challenging. But here's the thing about humans. We've never let ignorance stop us from trying the impossible." The three humans turned and began walking toward the chamber exit. Behind them, chaos erupted again as council members tried to process what had just happened. "Wait!" Zenthar called out. "You cannot simply leave. The council does not dismiss species who refuse membership." Hyunwoo paused and looked back. "You're not dismissing us. We're dismissing you." "This is not over," Queldris warned, his energy form blazing with fury. "No," Yunji agreed as they reached the chamber doors. "It's not, but it will be soon." As the humans left the council station, emergency meetings began throughout the chamber. Fleets were mobilized. Ancient weapons were prepared. The council would show these upstart humans the price of defying order. But in the private quarters of 3 junior council species, different preparations were being made. The Karani sharpened weapons they had hidden for decades. The Theks sang ancient war songs in their deep ocean colonies. The Veltar began growing something in their crystal gardens that the council had forbidden them to create. The galaxy was about to change. The question was, would it be the end of humanity or the end of the council's age of tyranny? The humans seemed to think they knew the answer. Time would tell if their confidence was justified or merely the last act of a doomed species. The council fleet was magnificent and terrible. 3,000 ships of 12 different species, each vessel a work of art and destruction. They had conquered countless worlds and destroyed entire civilizations that dared to resist council authority. Admiral Kethron of the Valthek stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. His crystal body pulsed with ancient confidence as they approached the coordinates where Earth's solar system should be. "Target acquisition in 30 time units," reported the navigation officer, a modified Theks whose ancestors had once ruled the deep oceans. All fleet groups report ready for compliance action. But as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, something was wrong. Space was empty. Where Earth's sun should have blazed, there was nothing but cold vacuum. No planets, no asteroids, no debris. Even the gravity signatures were gone, as if the entire solar system had never existed. "Impossible," Kethron whispered, his crystal form flickering through confused colors. "Run deep scans. The humans must be using some kind of cloaking technology. The most advanced sensors in the galaxy swept the empty region. They found nothing. Not even background radiation suggested that a star system had ever occupied this space." "Sir," called the sensor operator, "we're detecting massive spatial distortions at coordinate 77 Mark 12. Something very large just appeared." On the main display, reality seemed to fold in on itself. Space twisted and unfolded like origami made of starlight. When it was finished, ships hung in the void where none had been before. Human ships. But they were like nothing the council had ever seen. The vessels seemed to shift and flow, their hulls made of materials that bent light around them. They moved through space without visible engines, following paths that defied known physics. "Impossible," Admiral Kethron repeated. "Human technology is primitive. These readings must be false." Then the communication channel opened, and Admiral Tae-hyun's face appeared on the screen. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to look right through the council fleet. "Greetings, council forces," Tae-hyun said in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to what used to be the Sol system." "Where is your home world?" Kethron demanded. "What trick is this?" "No trick," Tae-hyun replied. "Just humans doing what we do best, adapting." More human ships appeared around the council fleet. They materialized from folded space, phased in from parallel dimensions, and emerged from what looked like tiers in reality itself. Within minutes, the council's 3,000 ships were surrounded by an equal number of human vessels. "This is impossible!" Cathron's crystal body flashed angry red. Your species discovered spaceflight mere decades ago. True, Tae-hyun agreed. But we've been busy since then. On the Council flagship's bridge, chaos erupted as sensor readings poured. The human ships weren't just using unknown technology, they were using Council technology, but improved and modified in ways that shouldn't be possible. Sir, whispered the tactical officer, they're using Morden phase shift drives, but somehow made them work with Sith Mori energy manipulation. And those hull materials. They look like Veltar crystal-grown organics combined with Karani adaptive metals. Kethron's understanding of the universe cracked a little. How did they acquire Council technology? We didn't steal it, Tae-hyun's voice came from the speakers. We were given it, by friends. New ships began appearing alongside the human fleet. These were recognizable. Karani war vessels that sang with ancient battle music, Thex bioships that pulsed with living light, and Veltar crystal ships that grew and shifted like living things. But they had been changed, enhanced. The Karani ships now carried weapons that sparked with human-designed energy fields. The Thex vessels moved through space using drives that combined their biotechnology with human quantum mechanics. The Veltar ships had grown into shapes that maximized both their natural crystal properties and human engineering principles. The junior species, Admiral Kethron realized with growing horror. They've allied with the humans. Not allied, corrected Velshin's voice as her ship moved alongside Tae-hyun's flagship. We've been liberated. On the surface of Velshin's ship, Karani warriors stood ready for battle. But their traditional weapons had been enhanced with human technology. Their war songs now carried frequencies that could disrupt Council ship systems. Deep Singer. Morgal spoke from his bioship, his translated voice carrying across all channels. For centuries, we forgot what it meant to be free. The humans reminded us. Crystal Mind Threknor's communication was even more direct. His ship's hull flashed with patterns of light that spelled out words in the old Veltar language. Council slavery. Ends now. Crystal people choose freedom path. Admiral Kethron tried to understand what he was seeing. Your modifications make you weak and dependent. How are you even functioning without Council oversight? That's the beautiful part, came a new voice. Dr. Yoonji appeared on the communication screen, speaking from what looked like a massive research vessel. Your modifications were designed to create dependency, but human medicine has gotten very good at treating genetic manipulation. We shared our medical knowledge, added Chief Engineer Boram from another ship. Turns out, most of your improvements can be reversed if you know how. The tactical display showed more impossible things. Human ships were somehow manipulating gravity itself, creating fields that pulled Council vessels off course. Others were generating energy patterns that interfered with Council communications and targeting systems. This cannot be happening, Kethron said to himself. 12 ancient civilizations cannot be challenged by primitives and rebels. Actually, Tae-hyun said with a slight smile, we've discovered that being ancient isn't always an advantage. Your technology is advanced, but it's also old and rigid, predictable. Our weapons can destroy planets, Kethron declared. We know. Engineer So Young's voice joined the conversation. We studied your weapons very carefully. Want to see what happens when human creativity meets Council technology? The human ships began to demonstrate energy beams that could slice through Council shields like paper. Projectile weapons that fired rounds through folded space, appearing inside enemy ships without warning. Defensive systems that turned incoming attacks into harmless light shows. How? Was all Admiral Kethron could manage to say. We asked, what if, Yoonji explained, what if we combined your energy manipulation with our quantum physics? What if we used your crystal growing techniques with our nanotechnology? What if we applied our computer programming to your ancient systems? Council perfected these technologies over thousands of years, Kethron protested. Perfected them for your purposes, Bo-Ram corrected. But we had different purposes. We needed to protect ourselves from you. That required thinking about your technology in ways you never considered. The Council fleet tried to respond. Ancient weapons fired at the human ships. Energy beams that had destroyed worlds struck the strange human vessels and did nothing. The beams seemed to bend around the ships or pass through them harmlessly, or sometimes get absorbed and reflected back at their sources. Your shields, Kethron whispered. Borrowed from the best, Tae-hyun explained. Sithmori energy manipulation, Morden phase technology, Valthek crystalline structures, and a few human innovations that make the whole system work better than any of its parts. More human ships appeared, and with them came representatives of other species, races that Council records listed as integrated junior members, but who now flew ships of their own design. The Zephyrians? Kethron identified one group with shock, but they were pacified centuries ago. Apparently, said a new voice with a musical accent, pacification is reversible when you have friends who remember what freedom looks like. The truth hit Admiral Kethron like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just refused to join the Council. They had contacted every oppressed species in Council space. They had shared their knowledge, their medicine, their technology, and most importantly, their absolute refusal to accept that tyranny was inevitable. You've started a rebellion, he said. No, Tae-hyun replied. We've ended one. The rebellion started when you decided that freedom was too dangerous for other species to have. The Council will never accept this, Kethron warned. The founding species will fight to the end. Then you'll lose to the end, said Captain Min-ho as his ship moved into formation with the others. Because the thing about humans is, we don't know when to give up. Even when we should, added Yoonji with a laugh. The tactical display told the story clearly. The Council fleet, despite its size and ancient power, was outmatched. Every weapon they tried was countered. Every strategy they attempted was anticipated. Every advantage they thought they had was turned against them. Surrender, Admiral Tae-hyun said simply. Your ships are defeated. Your crews don't need to die for the Council's pride. Around the Council fleet, ships began powering down their weapons. The crews had seen enough. They knew when they were beaten. Admiral Kethron sat in his command chair, his crystal body flickering through colors of defeat and confusion. In his long existence, he had never imagined that the Council's rule could end. It had seemed as permanent as the laws of physics. But humans, he was learning, had a habit of changing things that seemed unchangeable. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The massive Council station still orbited the galactic core, but its purpose had changed completely. Where once the chambers had echoed with the commands of ancient tyrants, now they buzzed with the excited conversations of equals working together. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the center of what had once been the Council chamber. The oppressive platforms and symbols of authority had been removed. In their place were simple tables and chairs where representatives from dozens of species could meet as equals. The Zephyrian colonies report successful completion of their first independent trade agreement, announced Vel Shin. The Karani warrior diplomat had grown stronger over the past months, her feathers bright with renewed health. Their artists are already planning cultural exchange programs with the Veltar crystal singers. The Thek's deep colonies have begun, sharing their biomedical advances with human researchers, added Morgal. The aquatic being's voice carried joy that had been absent for centuries. Together, we've developed treatments for diseases that have plagued both our species. Dr. Yoonji looked up from her datapad, smiling. The scientific cooperation program is exceeding all projections. When species share knowledge freely instead of hoarding it, discoveries happen at amazing speed. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many of the Council's former subjects needed time to remember how to make their own decisions. Generations of genetic modification and cultural suppression couldn't be undone overnight. But with human help and the support of other freed species, progress was steady. "What's the status on the restoration project?" Hyunwoo asked. Crystal Mind Threknor's translator displayed his response in glowing letters. 17 extinct species genetic data recovered from Council archives. 6 species successful restoration begun. Hope status increasing daily. The humans had been horrified to discover that the Council had kept genetic samples and cultural records of the species they had destroyed. But what had been meant as trophies of conquest became the foundation for resurrection. With advanced human cloning technology and careful cultural guidance from surviving records, extinct civilizations were being given a second chance. "The Mordani delegation arrived yesterday," reported Captain Minho, who now served as coordinator of interspecies security. "They're different than we expected." The Mordani had been one of the Council's founding species, rulers of vast territories who had helped establish the oppressive system. But when faced with the choice between fighting a hopeless war and accepting change, many had chosen adaptation. "Different how?" Yeon-ji asked. "Younger members of their species are asking questions their elders never considered. They want to understand why the Council failed, what they did wrong, and how they can do better." Not all of the former Council species had adapted well. The Sithmori energy beings had withdrawn to their ancient territories, unable to accept that their age and power didn't grant them the right to rule others. A few Valthek colonies still insisted that hierarchy was the natural order and refused contact with the new galactic community. But increasingly, members of even the most stubborn species were quietly making contact. Young beings who had grown up hearing stories of the old ways but had never seen their benefits. They wanted to experience the freedom and cooperation that was spreading across the galaxy. "Speaking of adaptation," So Young said, looking up from her engineering station, "the terraforming project on New Karani is ahead of schedule, combining human atmospheric processors with Thex bioshaping and Veltar mineral cultivation is producing amazing results. The new colonies were something special. Instead of one species claiming a world and excluding others, the freed species were building mixed communities. Humans worked alongside Karani in the mountains, while Thex managed the oceans and Veltar cultivated the underground crystal networks. Each species contributed what they did best, and everyone benefited. The cultural exchange programs are showing interesting results too," added Bo-Ram. "Human music combined with Karani battle songs is creating entirely new art forms, and you should see what happens when Veltar crystal growing meets human architecture." The door to the chamber opened, and a figure entered that made everyone pause. It was High Arbiter Queldris, the ancient Sithmori energy being who had once been the most powerful member of the Council. His energy form was dimmer than before, less overwhelming. When he spoke, his voice carried none of its former arrogance. "I request permission to address this assembly," he said quietly. Hyunwoo gestured to an empty chair. "Of course. Please join us." Queldris moved to the indicated spot, his energy form condensing into a more humanoid shape. For several moments, he said nothing. "I have existed for over 10,000 years, he finally began. In all that time, I believed that wisdom came with age, that power justified authority, that order was more important than freedom." The chamber was silent as the ancient being continued. "I was wrong. The words seemed to cost him great effort. I watched your species for these past months. You could have destroyed us completely. We had oppressed you and countless others. We deserved conquest and humiliation. But that's not who we are," Hyunwoo said gently. "No," Queldris agreed. "Instead, you offered redemption. You showed us that cooperation achieves more than domination. You proved that young ideas can be better than ancient wisdom. Dr. Yunji leaned forward. "What do you want from us?" "To learn," Queldris replied simply. "My people have withdrawn from the galaxy because we cannot accept that we were wrong. But I want to understand how to be better than I was." "It's not easy," Minho warned. "Changing beliefs you've held for thousands of years. Nothing worthwhile." "Is easy," Queldris replied. "Your species taught me that too." Yunwu stood and walked over to the ancient being. "Welcome to the Galactic Cooperative. We'll help you learn, just like everyone helped us learn." "The Cooperative," Queldris repeated. "A government based on cooperation rather than control. Revolutionary." "Actually," Yunji said with a smile, "it's just democracy on a galactic scale. Humans have been working on it for a few thousand years." Over the following weeks, Queldris became a regular presence in the chamber. The ancient being asked questions constantly, trying to understand concepts that had been foreign to him for millennia. How could species govern themselves without a ruling authority? How could decisions be made without someone being in charge? How could chaos not result from freedom? The answers came slowly, through observation and experience. Queldris watched, as disputes were resolved through discussion rather than decree. He saw how different species contributed their unique strengths to common goals. He witnessed the creativity and innovation that flourished when beings were free to think and create, without restrictions. "Your people have a saying," he mentioned to Hyunwoo one day, "about teaching a man to fish rather than giving him a fish." "Yes," Hyunwoo replied. "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." The council gave species fish, Queldris realized. "We provided everything they needed but never taught them to provide for themselves. We created dependency instead of strength. And now? Now we're all learning to fish together." The transformation wasn't limited to politics and governance. Scientific advances accelerated as knowledge flowed freely between species. Art and culture bloomed as different traditions mixed and influenced each other. Trade relationships developed based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Most importantly, hope spread across the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed for centuries began to remember their dreams. Young beings grew up believing they could change the universe rather than simply endure it. "The deep space monitoring stations are reporting something interesting," Taehyun announced during one of the regular assembly meetings. "We're detecting signals from other galaxies. It appears we're not the only part of the universe where ancient empires exist." The chamber fell quiet as the implications sank in. "Some of the signals show patterns similar to the old council broadcasts," Taehyun continued. "Demands for submission, threats against independence. It seems tyranny isn't unique to our galaxy." Velshin's feathers ruffled with excitement. "Then others need what we've learned." "The signals are very far away," Minho pointed out. "It would take years to reach those galaxies even with our best ships." "Then we'd better start building better ships," So Young said with determination. Dr. Yunji stood up, her eyes bright, with the enthusiasm that had driven human exploration for millennia. "We've proven that ancient oppression can be overthrown. We've shown that cooperation beats domination. We've demonstrated that freedom is stronger than tyranny." "What are you suggesting?" Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. "I'm suggesting that the universe just became a much more interesting place," Yunji replied, "and humans have never been able to resist making interesting places even more interesting." Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species began to smile or make their species equivalent expressions of joy. They had learned something important from the humans. The best response to discovering a bigger challenge wasn't to hide from it. It was to find friends and face it together.